What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 18. Sleepers and studs.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to give you a sleeper pick and my favorite stud at each position.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, NFL Week 18. Let's take a look at the quarterback position. So the stud on the slate is Josh Allen from the Buffalo Bills playing the New York Jets, who have the absolute worst defense overall, and they give up the fourth most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Josh Allen has averaged 26.1 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7.3 rush attempts per game. He's projected at 25.4 fantasy points here in Week 18. He's going to be about 14% owned, and he's 8,100 DraftKings salary and 700 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 41.5 points scored in this game, with the Buffalo Bills favored by 16.5. So fantastic matchup here. Josh Allen has scored 24, 34, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games, and he got 15, 12, and 3 rush attempts in those games. So just a ton of rushing volume. He could go for a big game here versus the Jets. So I like Josh Allen here versus the New York Jets. Okay, my sleeper pick at the quarterback position, and we were all over this pick last week, and we were all over this game in terms of sports betting, and I still think it's a pretty good bet here to take Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks over the Arizona Cardinals, who have a good defense overall, and they've been pretty good versus opposing quarterbacks. Russell Wilson has averaged 17.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 3 rush attempts per game. Only going to be about 3% owned, projected at 17.8 fantasy points here in Week 18. He's 6,300 DraftKings salary, 1,200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47.5 points scored in this game, with the Seahawks favored by 6.5. So the Seattle Seahawks have finally got healthy, coming at the wrong time at the end of the season when they're out of the playoffs. But this is going to be a statement game just like last week was. They want to go out on a high note. So I like Russell Wilson here versus the Arizona Cardinals.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. The stud on the slate that I like is Najee Harris from the Pittsburgh Steelers playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have the 5th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing running backs. Najee Harris has averaged 19 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 18.5 rush attempts per game and 5.6 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 86% of the snaps, going to be about 10% owned, projected at 16.7 fantasy points here in Week 18. He's 7,200 DraftKings salary, 1,300 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 41.5 points scored in this game, with the Steelers trailing by 5. So the Steelers need to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. And Ben Roethlisberger is questionable. So I think Najee Harris is going to get a ton of volume in this game. He gets a ton of volume anyways. He scored 33, 16, and 5 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 28, 19, and 12 rush attempts on top of 3, 7, and 5 pass targets. So I like Najee Harris here versus the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, now a sleeper pick at the running back position. This is kind of a dart throw pick here, but if you take a look at his last 3 games, he's getting a lot of volume, and he had 2 out of those 3 games were really good. So take a look at Rex Burkhead from the Houston Texans playing the Tennessee Titans, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They've been good against opposing running backs, but Rex Burkhead has scored 14, 32, and 6 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 16, 22, and 16 rush attempts on top of 6, 2, and 3 pass targets. So he's getting a ton of volume. He's only going to be about 7% owned, projected at 10.3 fantasy points here in week 18. He's 5,200 DraftKings salary, 400 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 43.5 points scored in this game, with the Texans trailing by 9.5. So Rex Burkhead could be a sneaky play in this game. So I like Rex Burkhead here versus the Tennessee Titans. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. So I like Jamar Chase, but the other guy that I like, the other stud on the slate that I like, is Justin Jefferson from the Minnesota Vikings playing the Chicago Bears, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing wide receivers. Justin Jefferson has averaged 20.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 10 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 89% of the snaps, going to be about 19% owned, projected at 19.6 fantasy points here in week 18. He's 8,100 DraftKings salary, 400 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 44 points scored in this game, with the Vikings favored by 6. Justin Jefferson has scored 12, 23, and 15 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 11, 12, and 10 pass targets. So he's getting consistent high volume of pass targets, and his production has been pretty good throughout the season, averaging 20.5 fantasy points per game. Cannot complain about that. So I love the passing volume. So I like Justin Jefferson here versus the Chicago Bears.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, now a sleeper pick at the wide receiver position. This is also kind of a dart throw because he really hasn't played well recently. But this guy's got some big upside. He's still getting a decent amount of pass targets. So this guy can explode any given game here. So I like, as one of my sleeper picks, I like Terry McLaurin from the Washington football team playing the New York Giants, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing wide receivers. Terry McLaurin has averaged 13.3 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7.8 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 90% of the snaps, going to be about 4% owned, projected at 13.8 fantasy points here in Week 18. And he's only $6,200 DraftKings salary, $500 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 38 points scored in this game, with the Washington football team favored by 7. Terry McLaurin has scored 13, 7, and 7 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 8, 6, and 4 pass targets. So I think this guy's going to want to go out with a bang, and he can certainly get it done. So I like Terry McLaurin at a nice low price tag and low ownership in a pretty good matchup here versus the New York Giants. Okay, moving on to the tight end position. The stud on the slate that I like, and I don't know if you can call him a stud, but he's just in a good spot here this week. So I like Zach Ertz from the Arizona Cardinals playing the Seattle Seahawks, who have the 9th worst defense overall. They give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Zach Ertz has averaged 10.3 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 6.4 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 13% owned, projected at 12.4 fantasy points here in Week 18. He's $5,300 DraftKings salary, $300 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47.5 points scored in this game, with the Arizona Cardinals favored by 6.5. Zach Ertz has scored 11, 13, and 13 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 9, 13, and 11 pass targets. So he's getting a ton of volume. He's been productive, and his price tag is pretty reasonable here in a great matchup. So I like Zach Ertz here versus the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, now a sleeper pick at the tight end position is Pat Freiermuth from the Pittsburgh Steelers playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have the 5th worst defense overall. They give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Pat Freiermuth has averaged 9.4 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 4.7 pass targets per game. Only going to be about 2% owned, projected at 9.5 fantasy points here in Week 18. He's only $4,600 DraftKings salary, $600 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 41.5 points scored in this game, with the Pittsburgh Steelers favored by 5. So fantastic matchup here, and Pat Freiermuth has scored 7 and 8 fantasy points in the last 2 games off of 6 and 4 pass targets. I just like his low price tag and low ownership in a game that the Steelers have to win here, and it could be a passing game script. We'll see how Ben Roethlisberger looks. If he's active, that's going to be a big part of this play, but it's a great matchup. So I like Pat Freiermuth here versus the Baltimore Ravens.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video, or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.